其实我知道这件事，如果我一直走不出来的话，
Back in 2018, I put down a down payment of about $77,000 and took out a mortgage of $137,000 to buy my first and only home. At the time, property prices were skyrocketing. It felt like prices were changing daily, just like the recent gold rush. I felt this insane pressure. If I didn't buy then, I'd be losing money. On top of that, everyone I knew was buying. If I didn't, people would look at me like a failure, like I'd spent all these years working in the city and still couldn't afford a roof over my head. My wife and I talked about it for ages. We had a small business running, and the income was steady. Our daughter was hitting school age, and we wanted her with us. So we decided to pull the trigger. We told ourselves that instead of never having any savings at the end of the year, we'd at least have a goal. Little did I know, that goal was the trap that would ruin us. 2 years later, the market didn't just correct, it cratered. At first, I ignored it, thinking it was just a normal fluctuation. I thought it would bounce back, but it just kept falling now. My entire down payment is essentially wiped out. Even if I sold the place today, the proceeds wouldn't even cover the remaining mortgage balance. With one wrong decision, I dragged my whole family into this nightmare. I'm trapped in this cycle of self-loathing and doubt every day. I wonder, if I hadn't given in to the peer pressure, if I hadn't been so blind, would I be debt-free today? I'm terrified to lose my job, terrified to rest, even terrified to get sick. I keep replaying the day I signed the contract. The way my hand was shaking, I thought it was excitement, thinking I'd finally made it in the big city. How laughable that feels now. The worst part isn't the struggle, it's that everywhere I turn, I see the ghost of my younger self making that mistake. He's just standing there, watching me. He doesn't have to say anything. I already know I was wrong, but I know I can't stay here. I have a wife, a child, and parents. I can't let them drown in my guilt, so I keep moving. It's slow, it's exhausting, but I haven't stopped. I don't know when I'll ever get over this, but I know one thing. If I stop now, it's truly over.
Man, I hear you. And honestly, that feeling of being pushed around by life, it's something a lot of middle-class families here in the States know all too well. You know, that heart-pounding, hand-shaking feeling you had when you signed that contract? That wasn't just excitement. That was the adrenaline of chasing the American dream, or in your case, the local version of it. Everyone was jumping into the market. It felt like a poker game where everyone else was winning, and you felt like if you didn't place your bet, you were the only one losing. That wasn't greed, that was the pressure of a society telling you that if you weren't playing the game, you weren't succeeding. But the part that's really killing you right now, it's not just the money, it's that suffocating feeling of being trapped. You're afraid to lose your job, afraid to rest, even afraid to get sick. That's the real burden. But I want to tell you a few hard truths, man to man. First, stop making self-blame your full-time job. You made that decision based on the information you had at the time. You bought that house to give your daughter a home and your family security. That was a decision rooted in love, not greed. You're a man who wanted to step up and provide. And that's something to be proud of, not ashamed of. Second, stop letting the ghost of your past self hold you hostage. You said you see that younger version of yourself watching you, like you're being judged, but you're just punishing the person you are today. Think about it. If your daughter grows up, do you think she'd want a father who's broken by a house? No, she'd take a father who's living in a rented apartment but still keeps his head high over a father who's been crushed by a mortgage. The fact that you're still getting up and working every single day. That's what real strength looks like. Third, it's just an asset, it's not who you are. Over here, we call houses golden handcuffs for a reason. If you sold the place and it didn't cover the loan, you've got a bad investment on your hands, fine? It's like buying a stock that tanked, but that's a financial failure, not a character failure. Your real assets aren't the bricks and mortar. It's your work ethic and your sense of responsibility. You are not defined by a contract. Listen, this house might have you cornered, but you don't have to mortgage your entire life along with it. You don't have to get over it overnight, as long as you're still moving, as long as you're still showing up for your family. you're winning. Stop letting a bad deal define your future. You're in the mud right now, sure. But you just have to keep putting one foot in front of the other. Don't stop. But for heaven's sake, stop living in the shadow of who you were back then.